Hi everyone, as promised, here's a little video about the handbook journal that I talked to you about in one of my previous videos when I did my big paper haul. So most of you know about the handbook journal. I know they look the same, but this one usually comes with a similar label as this, except that it's red and you have a poppy here instead of this flower. So this is the original one. I got this in 2013 when I was getting into watercolor journals, and the paper is 90 pounds. So it's typical of watercolor journals back then. There was no 140-pound watercolor journals yet, or rarely you could find some, and if you did, they were very expensive. Arches actually did have a field book that was with their Arches paper that was really nice, 140-pound and cotton paper, but they discontinued it for some reason. I don't know if they didn't sell it. It was pretty expensive, so I'm not sure why, but back then you could rarely find thick paper for your watercolors, and let alone finding cotton paper. So this is cellulose paper. You have pocket in the end, you have a bookmark, little ribbon here. It's okay paper. I liked it. It was one of my first journals for watercolor, and I didn't mind it at all. And recently I found out that Handbook actually made a journal with 140-pound paper, 300 GSM, which I thought was pretty neat. Unfortunately, I was only able to find it on Amazon, and it's a little pricey there, but I thought I'd give it a shot anyway. And so it's basically everything is the same. Same amount of pages. This line has the exact same format choices as this line here. So it's exactly the same except the thickness of the paper, basically. Even the surface of the paper is very similar. It's the same grain. Now I noticed that one difference is on the inside of the book. So it's still called the Handbook Journal, like this one, except that back then it was manufactured and distributed by Global Art Materials, and now it's distributed by Speedball Art Products. I don't know if it's made by them or not, or if it's still made by Global Art. But yeah, I think there was a merge, or I'm not sure what happened. Regardless, this also has the elastic band that you can use to keep your journal closed. Still hardcover, so it lasts for a long time. I mean, this I've used for well, 7 years, and it's still in very, very good shape. Even the elastic band, these often tend to disintegrate after a while, but this is in a really, really good shape still. I had put some watercolor ground on the top to personalize it. I thought it was fun. And then in the back it also has the little pocket, or in this case a big pocket, to put stuff in there, whatever you want. So I'm excited to have a larger size watercolor journal. And for my first test, I'm going to use my Nicker Painters Gouache and paint a landscape on it. I put some washi tape on my paper so that I can have clean edges once I'm done with the painting and I remove the tape. Then I did a very, very quick sketch, just as a guide for the sky, really. And then I jumped in with the sky, and I did a terrible job at it, I must say. The combination of colors that I used, I think, was the right combination, but I think the thickness of the paint was not the correct one. And I ended up with a very dark sky, first with the diluted paint I had a hard time blending the colors together, and I used a Hackett brush, a very cheap one I shouldn't have used, to try to blend all the colors together, but it lost a lot of hair and it made a mess. So I let that dry and then I cleaned it up a bit, and as it dried it ended up being very dark. The top half of my sky should have been a lot lighter, so I decided to use thicker paint, more opaque paint, so that I could lighten that part, which I thought I did, but again, it dried darker than I expected. I should have known because that's the exact property of gouache. But I kept working at it and had arrived at a color that satisfied me enough. Then I started working on the black silhouettes, and I realized that I had forgotten to paint the clouds, which I should have done first because they're behind the silhouettes. So I stopped working with the black and I went back to the clouds and tried to work those as best I could. Since it was a sunset, they were pretty dark and with just a few highlights here and there. Those were fun to paint. And then I fudged a little bit around the clouds on the sky, adding brighter colors and trying to blend everything. And when I was happy with the clouds, I went back to my black. It's actually a mix of black and green, so that it's not a flat black. It has a little tint to it. And that to me was the fun part of the painting. I really like painting silhouettes like that, especially trees. So I had a really good time doing that. The dead pine tree on the right was also fun to paint. I ended up using a brush that was a little old for that. It helped me achieve the mess of the needles, especially on the right side of it, and that was fun. And then I kept just on working on all the black areas for quite a while. I added some details in the foreground, some grass sticking out, and some little sticks and leaves and bushes. And then I got a phone call and I turned off my camera and I forgot to turn it back on when I started painting the highlights on the grass in the foreground. So it's nothing special. I just use a bright green, the green that I actually mixed with my black. And I just used a thin round brush and just flicked my grass blades in all different directions. Once I was done with the ones on the top, then I did a layer of black ones to kind of blend them together. And I just did that throughout the grass area. I also put a little bit of green on the leaves for the tree on the left to give it a little bit of dimension, and that's about it. So you didn't miss much. I use a hairdryer to remove my washi tape. It prevents the tape from ripping the paper. Even though washi tape usually isn't very sticky, sometimes it's just enough, especially if you've put some water on it, to rip the paper, and I just hate it when that happens. So I usually use a hairdryer because it kind of softens the sticky part of the tape and it comes off really easily that way. Then I did a few little touch-ups here and there. I did a few more highlights on my tree on the left. And then it was time for a little cleanup because I tend to, if my washi tape is not wide enough, to go over it, and I end up with an extra border of paint. So that was actually a good test to see if I could lift my gouache on this paper. And I used clean water with my brush and I scrubbed it and it came off really nicely. There's still some stain, but it's probably the pigment of the paint. I'll just have to be more careful, that's all. All in all, I'm really happy with this paper, at least for the gouache. I haven't tried it with watercolor yet. It barely buckled, which is great. I'll be able to paint on the other side of this page without any problem. I don't know if any of you has tried this journal yet, and if you have, let me know. How does it handle watercolor? It should be pretty good, I would think, considering the thickness. But I just might have to figure it out for myself. Thank you all for stopping by. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing to this channel. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'll see you soon with another video. Bye-bye.